Good evening and welcome again to Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. And we live in a country that is defended by one of the best militaries in the world. Many of us as citizens don't think about it much. Those guys go off and fight, come back, and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But many of our military people come back and they need help. And so tonight we have as our guests the founder, well, a founder and a board member of Operation Horses and Heroes. So Jerry Paulsen, Cynthia Abraham. You guys have created this organization to help veterans who come back who need help. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
And
Pleasure to be here.
I'd like to start with a little bit of explanation of just what is Operation Horses and Heroes. It's an odd sounding name. So what is it, what does it do, and how did it come to be? We'll take those one at a time.
Sure. Well, we started it that was about 7 years ago, 7 years ago now. And it was all created on the back of a napkin after some friends of mine.
Like a Silicon Valley startup.
There you go.
Almost, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But they were non-military, and they decided we should do something for the military. And we were all at an equestrian event that I was a part of. We said we should probably use the horses. So I came back and did some research and visited a few websites and visited a few other programs locally. And that's how it all started, is a way for me and those that I asked to be part of the organization to help pay it forward to all of our fellow brothers and sisters who have served and are serving. And the horses the name was very simple. Horses we're using. Everybody who has served is certainly a hero. And since so many of the things we do in the military are operationally focused, we incorporated the name Operation Horses and Heroes. So as they came to the program, it's a mini operation for them on the journey to self-recovery, self-help, and getting back into the mainstream.
And so both of you have extensive military experience. Jerry, I know you're retired from the military now, but Cynthia, you're still active in the reserves, right?
Yes, I am.
And so just a little bit about your military background as well.
Well, I was, I will say, recruited by my husband. He was 31 years in the Navy, and he said, Cynthia, you're going to love this experience. I was getting letters repeatedly needing veterinarians.
Which is what you're trained to be as a veterinarian.
Which is what I am.
Right.
On the civilian side, yes. So, of course, those went in the circular file for years until I finally thought, you know, this could be a great opportunity. I have a long line of uncles and aunts and grandparents that served before me, and so it seemed a very good path for me to serve my fellow countrymen.
And you have been deployed recently, correct?
Yes, yes. I just came back end of August, so that was my second tour in the Middle East. My first tour was in 2014. Shortly after I came back from that first deployment is when I met Jerry. It was a recruiting event that I was invited to at the time, and I thought perhaps they needed horses for
Horses and Heroes.
OHH.
I can't imagine
And
why you made that leap.
They did not. They said, you know, we don't own our own horses. But what little bit he talked about, I was intrigued from the start. And I thought, again, this is just another way to give back to all of the military men and women who serve us so gallantly and do come back with behavioral health issues.
They've been damaged.
They've been
by their
damaged,
deployments,
yes.
right? And Jerry, your military experience was
Right.
many years, what, 32
Right.
years, did you say?
Well, I trifected. So I did active duty, I did the reserves, I did the National Guard, and started out in the infantry, did a lot of other jobs, and ended up with Special Forces as a Green Beret.
So let's come back to the Operation Horses and Heroes. So we talked about Silicon Valley. So the elevator pitch about Horses and Heroes is you're trying to do what? What's the objective of the organization?
Our objective, our main objective is just to help pay it forward and to help all our fellow brothers and sisters who have served, to help them deal with, identify, discover some of the things that they're currently dealing with their post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injuries, emotional and social challenges, as well as with their prosthetics.
And so how does the program work? What happens? I mean, I know it's a multi-day program, and you have to sign up and apply and be accepted, right? So I'm not a veteran, but if I were and I were to come in, what would I do for those 3 days?
You're basically going to show up on the first day, meet all of your fellow soldiers, military personnel, you're going to meet the horses. We start out very simply with just grooming the horses. Now, some of these people have never even been around horses, and it's amazing to watch how they interact. And
Scared
of course,
to death, I imagine.
I will
for-
tell
Some
you,
are.
Yeah.
you know, as a veterinarian, our animals read us.
Hmm.
And these horses have an innate ability to read what is going on in the human psyche. I truly believe that. And these horses touch these individuals. We even, part of the program is matching a horse with a certain individual that's participating.
Oh, that's
And it's
interesting.
uncanny how you will see the horse's personality parallel the personality of the soldier or the sailor or whoever that is struggling. It's amazing to
So
watch.
does the soldier pick the horse, or does the horse pick the soldier?
I think a lot of
I'd
times
say
it's
Go ahead.
both ways,
Both
but
ways,
I
yeah.
think a lot of times the horse
The horse
picks
picks
the
more
soldier.
often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
not surprised by that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've owned pets, cats and dogs, but I find the same thing, that the dogs pick you when you're there
Yeah.
at the
Absolutely.
shelter to find
They
your dog.
gravitate to one that they kind of tune in with,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely.
And so to come back to the program, so you get them, they'll show up, the veterans will show up, and this is for active duty, for vets, for the families of
That is correct.
right. So they show up and they learn grooming. First they connect with a horse, and they learn grooming. What is it about that reaches this person in there, and what is it that's therapeutic about that?
I think part of it is they're taking care of this massive beast.
Exactly.
And of course, like with a dog, it's not a lap dog because we don't have lap horses, but they're really making that connection with that big, powerful beast. Not only are they grooming, but they're taking care of their stalls, so they're cleaning the stalls, they're feeding the horses, they're watering the horses. They're actually caring for this massive animal, and they really find that connection when they have that one-on-one time when they're grooming, when they're cleaning the stalls, making sure that that animal is fed and watered and safe and secure, and there's a real connection that develops.
So even for a short period of time, they take ownership in that animal.
Yeah.
And that's typically when they start to lower that guard down and really start to open up about what they're struggling with. And so that's kind of the opportunity for our clinician, who is not just trained in the program, but in our case, she is a clinical psychologist. So she knows, you know, she can already start to see what's going on
Right.
with these individuals and
Assess
start
the
to
dynamic of
evaluate
each.
that. Exactly.
And she's also a veteran herself, many, many years as a combat flight nurse, and she herself is a survivor of attempted suicide. So she can really identify with a lot of these folks that have come to the program, because we do combine both veterans and active duty in this ground therapy type of program.
And it's interesting. Do you find that there's an advantage of having active duty and veterans together? Because, you know, the veterans are retired, right? They're no longer serving. The active duty guys, or women, are. And I would think there's a different dynamic from that. You know, one's still, they know, but they may be deployed again, right? And they're there, so they're going to go off and face these things one more time, whereas the veterans are past that, at least physically, if not emotionally or mentally. So is there some sort of trade-off there that you see?
Well, it's actually a good point that you're making. And for example, I am a veteran.
Yes.
If you have served overseas in wartime, you're going to come home a veteran. So there's a lot of active duty people that are veterans. So the interesting dynamic there is that a lot of the folks that we work with are both.
Both.
They're actually both.
And
I
we
think a
get
lot of times the public doesn't
no.
realize you get the perception that if you're a veteran, you're retired.
Yeah, certainly you can
that's-
see that was my perception here, is that
No.
veteran means you're finished with your duty.
Exactly.
But that's not the case.
No, not at all. Not at all. And a lot of times, if you served your tour, you may be out for a day, you get your paperwork, and
Right.
then you re-enlist. So for that day, you're a veteran, and then the next day, you're back on active duty.
But now you also became a veteran,
But
so
then
now
you're
both.
still a veteran.
That's correct. And then there's the great dynamic between the older veterans who just did a tour, say, in Vietnam, who get the chance now to help some of these younger individuals who are still either A, serving, or B, veterans, and they share all these experiences. The older guys get to share with the younger guys, and the younger guys are helping the older guys relive.
It's a
their
great
past.
bonding experience between the participants. That's another beautiful thing to watch. You know, young and old, sharing their experiences and
Because I'm
assisting
sure
each
there's
other.
commonality across the
Very much
generations.
so.
War is war, right?
Yes.
And commonality even amongst the branches. You know, we all may have our little infighting and little things against each other, but when
Little
it's
digs.
yeah, but when it comes right down to it, it's one
We're one-
team,
yeah.
it's one fight, and we're all here to help each other, regardless of the color of the uniform.
And so it's interesting you mentioned the Vietnam vets as well, because that's now 40 plus years since we've gotten out of Vietnam. And so those veterans are still struggling in many cases. That I assume that's
And some
what
of
you're
them are
seeing.
struggling more than, I'll just say, the rest of us, because we all know when they came home, they were not accepted in
No,
a
they-
favorable manner.
Right.
And so many of those men and women have not been able to put that behind them. And we have seen, again, firsthand, just some miraculous changes in those people's lives.
We've actually had one Korean War veteran and one World War II veteran come through the program.
Wow.
And we've had about a 60-40 split between male and female. So we've had quite a few females. We had one program that was almost entirely female.
And a quick aside, so we talked about the Vietnam guys not being received. So I was a documentary I saw some years ago and talking about a guy who had come home from Vietnam, and he went back down to his local bar where he hung out, and his buddy said, "Hey man, where you been? You been on vacation?" I mean, it was sort of, you know, he had spent a year in Vietnam, and you know, if you're home, you know, a year goes by like that, and they just sort of thought, "Oh, gee, I haven't seen you in a while. Where, you been in Hawaii surfing? Or what's been up, dude?"
Yeah.
Right.
And he wasn't really even able to tell them where he'd been because
Exactly.
it was such an unpopular war that he just didn't want to have to deal with the kind of feedback he would get. And so, he, as you say, he just kept it bottled
Kept
up
it
inside.
buried, yes.
Buried it, right?
Yes.
So go through the program a little more. So you learn to feed them, water them, groom them. And I know it's hard to tell, but what is it about that connection to the animal, especially this big animal, that breaks down the barrier? I mean, why? I mean, I have not done this. So what is it that causes that transition to happen? Do you know?
I don't know that we can actually, I think it's pretty mystical to me. And of course, I see it in dogs, and you mentioned you have dogs and cats.
Right.
I see it in dogs, cats. I mean, there's, for goodness sakes, there's therapeutic chickens out there. You know, it really doesn't matter, but there's something about that human-animal bond. You know, we use horses, and I think we use them because they do read humans differently. You know, they are, you have to remember, they are prey animals. I mean, you got your predators and your prey animals. So they're vulnerable. And in this state, these humans are vulnerable. They're very vulnerable. And I think that's the connection.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
I think
I
the
don't know
other
if
thing,
Jerry agrees with me,
Yeah.
but I believe
No,
that
that's true.
you know, you've got two species that are, in their lives right now, they're extremely vulnerable. And that is a connecting bond there.
Well, and I fully accept some mystical element here. I mean, I think the older I get, the more I believe in these kinds of semi or even completely mystical kinds of connections that are not necessarily, maybe someday science will explain all of it, but at the moment, it can't.
It may not be explained, right?
But that doesn't make it any less real.
That is correct.
No, it's mystical and magical at the same time. And like our program that we do at Silver Spur Ranch out in Maple Park, Illinois, we have partnered there with another organization called Field of Dreams. They rescue horses. So we actually end up more with a hallmark moment. They rescue the horses. We're rescuing our men and women in uniform. You're putting the two together, and now they end up healing each other.
Ah, yeah. So both sides benefit, win-win.
Absolutely.
Right? Classic win-win.
It's totally.
Right.
Furthermore, a lot of our groundwork is building trust. You know, the horse has to trust the human, that the human is not going to take that horse, you know, into dangers, into harm's way. At the same time, we have some of our events, you know, I keep saying soldiers because of course that's what I am, but you know, the event participator is blindfolded, and now they're leading that horse or the horse sometimes is leading them. So you have this
you
mutual
have to build that trust.
You have to build that
Absolutely.
trust.
And many of the activities that we do, I'm trying to be very careful here so I don't give away too many trade secrets,
Yeah, right.
have been designed, I don't want to say for failure, but to make the participants, our veterans and our active duty, make them think outside the box to come up with a solution. And we use the horse as that means for them to have to figure out what's going wrong with that exercise, which then helps them figure out a little bit more and identify what's the things that are going wrong with them inside.
Well, I think just being able to solve a problem is helpful, because in many cases, and I've interviewed other people in the mental health field, and you feel helpless, like you can't move forward. Particularly in talking about people who faced suicide.
Absolutely.
There is no other solution. But here you're forcing them to come up with a solution, which in itself proves, solutions are viable.
And we do it two ways. One, they come up with it as an individual themselves, but we limit the group for the 3 days to no more than 10. So a lot of times they have to problem solve
Together.
Exactly.
which also then opens up the lines of communication, which they may not have in their home situation, with their spouse, with their children, with their employer, with their friends. One of the exercises that I'm really fond of is we turn loose a couple of horses in the arena. After a couple of minutes, we turn loose another horse that we know will not get along. We watch that unfold, and then part of the discussion is asking each one of them, which one of those horses do you most identify with? Invariably, they all say the one that was kept away. Why? Because when they came home, they were broken, and everybody kept them away. The family kept them away. The kids didn't accept them. I wasn't accepted by my friends. So once one of them says something like that, another veteran will say, well, wait a minute, I feel that way too. So now they don't feel like they're alone on the island, like they're the only one who came home broke, and that bond starts, that camaraderie starts, the communication starts. And they start to share their experiences and grow with each other.
And trust each other.
And trust each other,
through the
absolutely.
clinician, they're peeling back the layers of the onion to get down to how to get fixed.
Now, neither of you has a background in psychology or in mental health.
We do not.
Nope.
So how did you figure out how to create this program?
We didn't actually create the program. There's another gentleman who is a veteran who is kind of like the godfather of equine therapy who runs a program. Both our clinician and our EAP, equine specialist, have been through that program, and it's modeled after that called the OK Corral series, which is started by a gentleman by the name of Greg Kirsten, who actually wrote a 3-day program specifically designed to have that individual come out certified to work with veterans and horses. So a lot of the evolutions and exercises are based off that.
And how did you guys come to realize that was the path to take?
There are two or three real models out there in the equine world. We looked at all of them, and this is the only one that partners veterans and horses together exclusively.
And so you both have backgrounds with animals and horses. I know, Cynthia, you're a veterinarian, so clearly you have lots of experience with animals. And Jerry, you must have experience with horses. Or
Yep,
you were a
Yes.
rider
grew up
for
on a
long
farm, farmed, had animals all growing up, and then in a different lifetime, I jousted as a hobby.
time? Oh, really?
Yeah.
At what they call them, Renaissance fairs.
Yep.
Right?
I didn't do the Ren Fair, but I did some other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you good at jousting?
Yeah, I was absolutely good at losing.
Yeah.
So I was great.
Well, that's part of the entertainment
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
crowd,
that
right?
was.
Right?
And
So
it was very entertaining, too, I might add.
So, how does someone apply? I mean, if someone is a veteran, and they, first of all, how do they find out about you? And then once they do, because you keep the group small, or you say usually about 10, how does someone qualify to get into the group?
By serving in our military.
That's it.
Oh, that's
They
it.
don't have to have done anything else except serve.
And find a program they can attend.
And we also take those who have been dishonorably discharged. Because a lot of time they can't get many of the federal services because of having a bad discharge.
Right.
It doesn't matter to us as long as they've served our country and raised their hand. That's all the prerequisite there is. No questions asked.
And it's interesting, so they must add a different dynamic to the group as well, because they must, I would imagine, they're struggling with issues that come about from a dishonorable discharge, you know.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, that's
Rejection's number one.
rejection,
Absolutely.
right, right.
Yes.
I couldn't cut it, or I did something wrong, I screwed up, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So we let them know that they are accepted.
Yep. Yeah, we had a young Marine come through who unfortunately was randomly selected for a drug test and tested positive for marijuana and was thrown out of the Marine Corps. He now no longer gets federal services or federal help at the VA. Period.
So he's got to find other outlets like yours. And you know, you talked before the show too about some success stories. A family that had lost a son in, was it Afghanistan?
Afghanistan, yes.
And talk about that story, because I found that so interesting how the family reacted to that initially.
Well, initially after they were told that their son had been killed, they took down every picture of him in the house, and the family never talked about him again for almost 10 years.
And as I said before the show, I had found that really odd, and you both said, oh no, that sort of thing happens more often than you might think. So the families react in what I would think is unexpected ways. So how did that get transformed?
We were actually doing a program at their farm because they had a boarding stable. We found out about it, and we invited mom and dad and the daughter, the sister, to actually be a part of the program. So we just welcomed them with open arms, had them come and participate with us in the exercises, with our clinician, and working with their own horses and our clinician. They were able to have a breakthrough and were able to start talking about their son again. Fast forward 1 year, we're back at the same facility. His picture's up all over the house, and they're talking about him again as a new way, and they found a way to heal by going through our program with our clinician.
I mean, that's a remarkable story. And then I assume that now that's been a few years since then, and they've continued this
His
healing
picture's
process.
still up, and the
Yes.
barn has a big plaque over the barn with his name on it.
Yes.
That's fantastic. And you've also talked about, you know that you have prevented a certain number of suicides. With these.
Yes, we have.
And so, talk about that a little bit. I mean, Cynthia,
So,
what happens there?
you know, again, they come to our programs, and typically somewhere maybe around day 2, they don't talk about it at first, but somewhere in that second day, they admit this. Not maybe necessarily to us board members who were just, you know, kind of around facilitating things, typically to the clinician that we mentioned, the psychiatrist. And from there, we just watch a transformation occur through the trust, through the working with the animals. We do spend as board members a lot of time befriending these folks and just in our downtime, you know, coming and visiting them, giving them big hugs. You know, a lot of these folks, they just seem sometimes starved for attention. You know, they're living in a world where they're isolated.
They've become
For
almost
whatever
a non-person.
reason, yes.
And they feel left out.
And
Yeah.
you know, it's amazing. The one that I can think of for sure was almost clingy. You know, just a delightful woman. My gosh, she was in her 70s. Jerry, was that right?
Early 70s. A
And
nurse in Vietnam.
you know, the stories that she told after she really opened up was just amazing.
Both
and she-
terrifying, I would imagine, and reassuring. right?
Absolutely.
She was
she
a
was
nurse
just
right
one
in the
of-
middle of the Tet Offensive in '68 in Vietnam.
Tough time to be there.
Yep.
Yeah, especially as a nurse, where she would have seen all of the injured and dying guys, right?
And certainly some very heinous crimes that I know are, I'm sure, embedded in her memory for the rest of her life. And it's hard to get past that.
Yeah, and so people who have gone through the program, do they come back, or can they come back? Is that
Yes.
just-
Absolutely.
We've had people come back. Not a lot, but Jerry can
fair
probably name
number.
a fair number.
Yeah.
that
We've had a
have
couple come
returned.
back through the program, come back a second time for continued help and camaraderie. And what we do is, just like in the military, you've got a battle buddy.
Okay.
So what we do is we will invite all the past participants to come back and be battle buddies for the new veterans coming to the program.
Okay.
So we pair them up so they don't feel alone or isolated, and it gives them that reassurance right from the start that, hey, if she went through it and she's helping me, then I know I can get through it. And I've got somebody I can turn to when I need something.
So what happens after they leave?
I was just going to add on to what, a caveat after what Jerry just said. The program doesn't end on Sunday. They have our names, they have our numbers, they have Dr. G's number. We are told, we tell them day or night, if you're struggling with anything, we are still your family here, and we're not going away. And we have had people contact the board members if they developed a special connection with one of us. Certainly they've called Dr. G
Our
on
clinician.
numerous occasions and reached out to
And
her
this
for
battle
further
buddy arrangement you
assistance.
talked about, so that's, like I know in AA, for example, you're given someone who you can call if you feel like you need a drink. They always have you paired up with someone who you can call and say, talk me through this.
They have a list of not only themselves, we've got a roster, and they all have each other's information. They have all of the cadres' information. They have our clinicians' information. They can reach out to us anytime. And Cynthia said it almost the best in that we do become family in a very short period of time. And in one of those epiphany moments that I had a couple of years ago, it dawned on me that we all come together as strangers, but we all leave again as family.
And so that family continues then for
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
afterward.
So we look at it that our family just continues to grow
Yep.
with every event that we put on.
And not only do they come back to the programs, but all of our fundraising events, they can come back and be a part of us and help with the fundraising events and then help promote, and they become the ambassadors of the program. So we're in 8 states. And
It's headquartered here in Chicago, though?
Right,
Yeah.
headquartered in Elgin.
Yeah.
And we've been in 8 states now, as far west as Idaho and as far east as Georgia.
So we only got about 30 seconds left, but how has this helped each of you?
Oh my goodness.
I remember this is the elevator pitch.
I got less, I don't have 30 seconds. We got a lot more. It's been a constant growth experience for me to help me with the things that I went through during my career.
And same for you, Cynthia?
Well, I have been, of course, considering what he did in the Army and what I do, I'm definitely, away from the front lines. So it's not the same thing. But I still am amazed at what I see my soldiers struggling with, especially my young soldiers, who just maybe don't seem to have the coping skills that they should have. And we can't get into that now. I'm not sure why that is.
Yeah.
But I have, especially as commander this last tour, I had a lot of soldiers that were struggling. And we were not.
So this has helped you see that struggle. So unfortunately, on that
Absolutely.
note, we have to wrap up the show. But it's been such a pleasure meeting both of you.
Thank you
I've
for
learned-
having us.
Wonderful.
I've
This
learned
really
a
has
ton
been a
just by
delight.
talking
Thank you
with
very much. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
my pleasure.
Absolutely.
Don't stay
fact-
saying you're going
You're
to
gonna rip my-
Yes, so don't do that. Anyway, we want to thank you once again for watching Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. You can see us every Saturday night at 8 on Comcast Channel 19, or find us on the web at publicperspective.tv. So until next time, thank you and good night. See how fast.